In a world where beasts and humans live together, there are tameable creatures with the power to shatter the sky and earth. And at the very top of this place is a guy named Suleang, blessed by the lunar butterfly. This is a super rare beast from legends that can even turn back time. You can see the god's favor right in the boy's eyes, and so, he earned the title of Lunar King and is admired by everyone. In some ordinary house, a kid is just on his computer. The Lunar King gets a ton of attention and is on top of the world, even to non-followers. However, the boy is breaking a cold sweat, saying the only thing more incredible is that he, Suleang, is this so-called Lunar King. He's freaking out because he just got transported to this world. Originally from Earth, he immediately received fragments of the owner's memory. It seems the real Lunar King was asleep, fell out of bed, and conked his head. Our protagonist thinks it'd be amazing if he really were the so-called Lunar King, but he pulls up the status window and sees he's nothing more than a one-star Tamer. His companion is the shimmering beast with moonlight power. He starts cursing the system because he knows this butterfly is nothing legendary. The problem is, everyone has huge expectations for this kid. How's he going to handle this pressure? Not to mention the original owner loved the attention and made everyone think he was strong. He told everyone he had the reincarnation butterfly that only shows up in dangerous situations. When he performed, the girls went nuts, saying he was amazing and handsome. Even facing the 8-star empress, Can Yue, the guy didn't flinch. Our protagonist has no idea how this dude was so crazy. He just lets it go and checks out his beast. The so-called shimmering butterfly appears before him. You can still see traces of the gods. As it gets close to his face, he thinks it's cute, but his expression sours when he realizes how useless it is. He knows a massive battle awaits him in 3 years, but the bigger problem is that he can't even beat the people at the academy right now. Without a system hack, like in a level-up manhwa, he'll never become the Lunar Emperor. That's when he recalls a memory from the body's original owner and wonders if he has it too. He says Lunar Book, and the item appears in his hands. Looking at it, he's impressed, wondering if they are illustrations. On the first page, several low-ranking, moon-related creatures are shown. When he combines all of them from one page, he gets a new one, just like a card game. It seems the prior owner ignored this book because it said the lunar butterfly was weak. He thinks the original guy was a complete idiot. However, now he's motivated, since he'll be studying at the Lunar Light Academy, a place where it will be easy to find this type of creature. Leaving his room, he knows he can't get into fights and must focus on getting stronger for 3 years. In the advanced Tamer dormitory, a little bunny is being fed, and someone says it's to help it grow up big and strong. Then, a girl in red clothes named Su Jing tells her to quit mingling with weak creatures that will get attached. The girl named Beaur says she won't contract with the bunny, she's just having fun. However, Su Jing says that as one of the elites, she can't be near weak creatures, or strong ones won't want to make a contract with her. She enthusiastically says the girl must be like the Lunar King, who only deals with extremely powerful creatures. Just then, something catches the bunny's attention while the girl says she's sure the lunar butterfly is with the king because he doesn't smell weak. At that moment, the rabbit runs to someone's feet. When they look to the side, they are shocked. They see the stylish Lunar King and blush. To them, his eyes are full of oppression. The two think one glance from him can make anyone submissive, but really, he's just spooked because he's seeing a girl with cat ears. At that moment, he remembers the Lunar King avoided contact with anyone. He heads to the Moon Pavilion. Looking up, he knows it's a place with many low-level creatures. If he can unlock several in the book, he will get new ones. Walking around, he sees some particles and touches one. Then, new beasts and illustrations are unlocked, from the moon element to a juvenile fox, a shadow rat, and a moonlike fish. Suleang is impressed he can see battle info, and now he's stoked because our sly guy has a hack. Something catches the fox's eye, and Suleang freezes. He finds himself before a massive door. He feels a cold energy pouring from the place as all the creatures back away. Slowly, he pushes the door open, and in the center of the room, something grabs his attention. On an altar sits an albino deer with a purple horn. The creature moves with pure grace as Suleang approaches. The system warns him that this is the white flower deer, the most beautiful of all mid-rank creatures, and that it's extremely picky about its company. Our boy thinks the system is being a bit dramatic. Meanwhile, some guys nearby say it's ridiculous to spend so much money on a mid-rank creature, commenting they've never seen a beast get this treatment. The brown-haired guy remarks that maybe it's just because of its appearance. And right then, the deer glances back. His friend says it's just rich folks showing off, when suddenly a jet of water blasts his head, leaving him dazed. The deer glares at them, and they bolt. One of them yells that mid-rank creatures are as smart as humans, so it's better for them to get out of there. Our hero, watching the creature, thinks those guys had a point, right until their eyes meet. The creature notices something unique about his eyes. She approaches and begins to circle him. It gets very close to his eye and just stares. Then, all of a sudden, the lunar book appears in his hand with a message that a new beast was unlocked, and the illustration count increased. That's when it hits Suleang. This wasn't a mid-rank creature, but a supreme-rank beast able to destroy a kingdom, a monster with more intelligence than any human that commands all animals. That thing is basically a nuke chilling in the middle of the academy. If that creature decides to throw down, this whole place is toast. He then figures if she's there, the academy must know she won't actually hurt anyone. And since those guys were ejected with a splash of water, she clearly has no intention of causing harm. However, he can't rule out that she's hiding her true strength, unlike him, who everyone assumes is strong, but is actually super weak. He looks over at her, who is looking at the plaque, calling her a mid-rank creature. They lock eyes. He knows for a fact that she's aware she is fooling everyone. But then he's startled. She shifts into an aggressive pose, and he guesses she's afraid her identity will be exposed. With that, he starts talking loudly, saying this mid-rank creature is so beautiful he was frozen in his tracks. He knows the most important thing now is not to make an enemy of something like that. He decides to wander around, pretending to admire other things until the door closes. Then he scrambles out of the place, all while the deer stands there, remembering our boy's eyes and wondering who he was to have them. She heads to her bed and pulls out a phone with a doe wallpaper. She searches for a boy in the city with crescent moon eyes, and she's shocked by what she finds. Meanwhile, in the Tamer's dorm, he is totally wiped, wondering how the school dares to keep a T-Rex in its zoo. Even worse, despite its appearance, that creature is way more dangerous than a dinosaur. Luckily, he met her there, because in the wild, he would have needed another supreme rank beast just to get out alive. And the worst part is, his own creatures are the lowest of the low. That's when he realizes the creatures he touches are the ones whose abilities he can see, and he gives his goofy speech about having the world in his palm, like in a level-up manhwa. He decides to confirm this with another academy beast. However, on his way, he spots that rabbit and wonders if it's the same one from the morning. He finds it odd that the creature is so calm, as lunar monsters are usually active at night. The rabbit is just looking all cute and peaceful at him, and the protagonist wonders if it's another crazy powerful creature in disguise. He calmly reaches out for a quick info scan. The moment he touches the critter, absolutely nothing happens. He discovers it lacks a lunar physique, meaning it only gets a boost on a full moon, and is even weaker than a low-rank mob. He feels like a moron for expecting two super strong monsters. Just then, someone drops some food, and a phone clatters to the ground. Something catches our hero's eye, but he's totally clueless that he's being spied on by Beaur. She can't believe she's seeing the Lunar King petting a weakling. With that, she heads back to the dorm. Jing asks, "What's up?" and the cat girl wonders what the odds are the Lunar King actually likes tiny monsters. Her friend is baffled by the random question, but she just dashes off, claiming it was only a joke. Back in her room, her mind races, replaying the gentle look the Lunar King gave that little rabbit, and she wonders, all sweet and proper, if she's the only one who's seen that side of him. Sewell knows he was spotted, but honestly, he could not care less. He figures the girls might even dig it. He decides to hit his room, 'cause it's time to sleep. But then, something else snags his attention. At the window is a seriously dangerous demon. He freaks out, having no idea who this terrifying creature is. The problem is, it might not even be human. It's more like a humanoid beast. Most importantly, the pressure coming off her is absolutely crushing. As she gets closer, he can't process her power, until she suddenly drops to one knee, greeting the Lunar King and Lunar God. He starts digging through his memories. He realizes he's supposed to know her. She's one of the 4 moons from the order he created, but he has no clue which one is standing before him. He says nothing, and the poor girl breaks out in a cold sweat, thinking even the king's silence is terrifying. He has zero idea what her name is, so he just cuts to the chase and asks what she wants. The girl says the Black Lunar Order has been super active in the central region, especially at the Palace of the Gods. Suleang has absolutely no idea what she's on about. He turns his back and she asks what's wrong. Our guy tells her to zip it because he's trying to remember stuff. After a quick internet search, he claims he remembers. Now he gets that it's not that he didn't know. It's that the body's original owner just didn't give a damn. She explains that the Black Lunar Order isn't the issue. The real problem is the Palace of the Gods getting involved. Now that name definitely gets our hero's attention. The Lunar Palace of the Gods is a place that's home to thousands of legendary beasts. But even though they've been strong for 1,000 years, the Order of the Double Moon flipped the script in the last 3. She explains the Order of the Four Moons wants to attack. The only catch is there'll be no one left to guard him. Suleang stays quiet, then says she can proceed, since he's in no danger under the moonlight. The girl gets hyped, saying she understands perfectly. This is a classic line from the lunar god. And everyone believes that thanks to the butterfly, he's totally untouchable. With that, she's gone, and our boy is silent. He can't fathom how the original owner had the guts to say such cringy stuff. The worst part is the guy would just walk around spouting random phrases. However, because of his fanatical followers, these one-liners actually became famous. Out of nowhere, he'd say he felt the lunar god's presence, or the moon favored him, or that the moon would rise, and that the moon was bright. He's completely lost. He just got transmigrated with all these problems. This is way more complicated than your average level-up manhwa, but at least he doesn't have to worry about the palace. The only problem is, he doesn't have the actual butterfly. So, he is basically flying solo, with zero bodyguard. If he gets attacked now, he'll die in some stupid way. That's when he remembers something. After unlocking a bunch of creatures in a book, he can finally get a new one. It says he can start the first exchange, and he gets pumped. The system warns that the creature he gets is totally random. Once it appears, he can either register it as a creature, or send it back to the system for some attribute points. Our boy gets hyped. This way, he can get stronger, and not just rely on creatures. Still, he's anxious to get Lys's supreme rank 1 and fear nothing. With that, he starts praying to every god in the book. All excited, he says he'll seek the supreme beast, and then hits the button. Energy erupts from the book, and a blinding light hits him. The pages fly, the system announcing a creature has been unlocked. He's on edge until he gets a translucent moonlight. It's a high-rank creature, but it seems to have support abilities. He knows for other people, this would be a good creature. However, he is the lunar god, so something like this makes little difference. The crisis he's in can't be solved with just one high-rank creature. And so, he returns it to the book. The system says he'll be rewarded with the creature's own strength. He gains enough experience to become a 1-star tamer and almost reach 2 stars. He's thrilled for a second, then instantly bummed, knowing it's pointless. He's angry the body's previous owner could have made contracts with strong monsters, a classic level-up manhwa move, but chose a butterfly instead. Then, before going to sleep, he realizes he made a foolish decision. Even that creature was better than the butterfly he has now. That kind of decision seems strange, and our boy questions if his actions are still influenced by the guy who owned this body. That's when he shakes his head, saying he's going crazy for believing any of that guy's nonsense. He throws himself on the bed. He says next time he gets a high-ranked beast, he will make a contract. At least tomorrow, he can go to the pavilion for more experience. Remembering the white deer, he cooks up a plan, bringing something to see if he can touch her. The next morning, the deer wakes up startled. The entire place is empty. She wonders if it's getting demolished. Then a girl approaches her. She says the deer will live a better life at the palace of the gods. Looking sad, she tells the deer to obey its new owners. The poor deer is scared she was sold, especially to the palace of the lunar god. Nearby, 2 girls in work clothes say it's ridiculous the lunar god studies there. A blue-haired girl tells the other not to cause trouble and to focus on their mission. She turns, saying she knows they are only there for the white flower deer. Then a green-haired girl named Sing introduces herself as the owner of the pavilion. The 2 women introduce themselves, saying the night is eternal, which makes Sing think these 2 are pretty arrogant. She tells them to come in and see the creature. The blue-haired one says she already saw it online, and to just bring it out, they'll pay 10 times the price. That leaves Sing startled. She decides to take advantage, saying this white deer is a descendant of the pavilion owner's original creature. That's why they've been treating her like a supreme creature, and 10 times the price is simply not enough. The red-haired girl says being a descendant doesn't change her mid-ranking status, but her sister tells her to shut up, asking if 20 times the price would be enough. That surprises the sister and interests the pavilion owner. However, the redhead tells her sister 20 times is way beyond the money they have. But the blue-haired girl has a creature called the Moon's Voice that's warning of a great danger about to arrive. They need this creature to protect the palace of the gods. And that is why she is willing to raise the price. But at that moment, she feels something. A pressure that could crush anyone. She knows the only being capable of that is the Lunar King, who is approaching. She starts trembling, wondering why he is at the pavilion. And her red-haired sister can't even react. She realizes the girl's sanity has just been shattered. She keeps trying to communicate. She tells her not to look him in the eye. However, her sister turns, gets startled, and faints. The blue-haired girl stands there very calmly, saying she saw him up close. Swang approaches the 2 and gives them a stare. With that, they bow their heads while he stands there. The The poor girl feels she lacks the courage to even raise her head. It's like she's trying to defy a literal god. While the two are terrified he's about to wreck them, he's just standing there, clueless why everyone's frozen, until King He rushes over calling his name. She approaches, gushing that it's an honor to see him in person. She flashes a tattoo on her arm, explaining she joined the Double Moon Brotherhood 3 months ago. With that, she explains those girls are messengers from the lunar god's palace, here to buy the deer, while commenting she wants to sell it for a crazy high price for its bloodline and beauty. It hits Suang that nobody here has a clue just how powerful that creature actually is. Something so rare can't be sold for any price. With that, he turns and the sisters finally relax, until he tells them to get lost, because this place isn't for their kind. He claims the moon is about to fall. He glances at the sky, thinking it's way too early. There isn't even a moon out yet. However, she takes him literally, as if the actual moon is going to fall. In other words, a premonition of a disaster that was about to happen. The blue-haired sister realizes he knows what's up with the god's palace, when the redhead suddenly pipes up that the moon isn't actually going to fall. However, she completely stammers her words. The crowd warns she shouldn't talk back to the moon god's chosen one. And just then, she's startled to find our boy just staring with his moonlit eyes. She starts to tremble as he simply walks away. She collapses into her sister's arms, who figures if the moon god is involved, they have to ditch their plan. As he leaves, though, she knows he foretold a coming calamity. While King He recalls the girls saying the moon would never fall, she sees the humiliation they receive from the king, and says they indeed fell long ago. The only eternal moon is the one the Moon King sees. Our guy finally relaxes, thinking everyone buying his act has its perks. He doesn't know when his cover will be blown, but for now, the deer should be safe. Meanwhile, the staff is clearing out the hall. The deer is freaking out, telling them to stop taking her stuff, confusing everyone. The blonde girl gets all emotional, saying she apparently doesn't want to leave her caregiver. She hugs the deer's head, calling her beautiful and promising to visit, while the deer just wants her to let go. The woman goes to her bed, saying it has to be removed too. But underneath it all, she finds a cell phone, a magazine, and a mirror, and wonders why a beast has this stuff. The deer panics, thinking her secret history is out. She'd been researching the Moon King. With that, she gets pissed, vowing to protect it, and turns into a demon, leaping at the woman. The cell phone goes flying and lands right in someone's hand. When she turns around, she freaks out. Our boy is standing in the doorway, and everyone recognizes him. Now she's worried. He was the one person who couldn't see this. As he looks, he's stunned. The deer is hiding while he sees she was reading a spicy level-up manhwa about beasts and humans. This is definitely forbidden territory. But hey, those authors are unstoppable. Suleang then tosses the phone, declaring the sale is off and everyone should leave. He warns that at sunset, the Double Moon folks will send someone to buy this place. People are shocked he wants to buy the entire place. Suleang, however, is thrilled. The plan was to get several low-ranking creatures, but who knew he'd get a shot at a Supreme Rank 1? In this case, the best move is a tactical retreat. Everyone's confused about what's happening, commenting that nobody expected the Moon King himself to cancel everything. The woman, however, is more curious about what was on that phone the king saw. But just then, the deer dashes over, snags it with her mouth, and bolts. She speeds past all the beasts, thinking this damn king saw her whole identity and even her search history. He's trying to escape, but she won't let him leave this pavilion. With that, she orders him to stop, saying she knows he saw everything. Hearing her voice, he realizes, it's a girl. And now that mind-reading stunt makes sense. She warns if he reveals the secret to anyone, she won't let him go. Seeing him freeze, she wonders if her threat even landed. But Suleang says she needn't worry about her intimate secrets getting out. She looks weirdly scared, and he mentions that she's caught his attention. However, she retorts that she's not afraid just because he's the Moon King. If he blabs, she'll hunt him down and finish the job. Suleang knows creatures can sense their names spoken nearby, a skill all supreme-level beings possess, a classic trope in any level-up manhwa. So he asks if she'll appear beside him every time he says her name. She angrily yells yes. Then she wonders why he sounded so romantic about it. He steps closer, saying it's their secret, gives a small smirk, and leaves, telling her to remember that. However, before he's gone, she tells him to wait, warning him to be careful with the full moon. Suleang turns, says he gets it, and then leaves. She just stands there, thinking about what he said. Suleang is sweating bullets, wondering if he actually managed to fool a supreme beast. I'm sweating that this supreme beast doesn't turn into a woman soon, for Pete's sake. But he smiles, realizing her biggest concern is her history getting exposed. The only strange part is her warning about being cautious with the full moon. If she thinks he's the moon god and still said that, something weird is definitely happening. Back at home, he wonders what's gonna happen next. And the biggest problem is that he's totally without bodyguards. If that's the case, his top priority is to build up his team. Meanwhile, at the Lunar God's palace, a spot known to be ruled by the 10 princesses, going by the art, I'm sure they're all unique looking and super skinny. Number 4, who totally proves my point, asks if the king really said those words. The girls say yes, and she says they should just adapt and prepare. But then the other women at the table start mouthing off, saying she's wrong. One in red armor says his appearance at the pavilion proves something's up. They all conclude there must be at least one monarch-ranking creature, and a bald one says something is about to go down, that not even the lunar palace will survive. People want to know if the 4th princess is going to cooperate with him. She asks if they really think that once he signs a contract with a monarch, they can still beat him. No one answers. She asks if they're scared, until it's clear the speaker isn't a woman. A guy says, "The Moon King isn't the only one favored by the moonlight." After Suleang used all his group's cash to buy beasts from the academy, folks from the north started questioning what he was up to. Most thought he'd absorb weak creatures to get his energy back, a sign the monster inside was about to awaken. Because of these rumors, people in the north were seriously on edge. However, the person they feared so much was in his room, playing gacha, summoning new creatures. I just want to know why he summoned Peppa Pig. At least he's stoked to have gotten a high-ranking creature. Even with the pavilion's help, that's all he's managed to get. Low or medium-rank creatures are pretty much useless for anything except trading for points. And even though he said he'd accept a contract with the next high-rank creature, this moon in the lake seems to be a support type. The body's owner has no memory, and there's nothing about her online. He finds it weird that some creatures aren't in the encyclopedia yet. Knowing he got the letter, he decides to take a look at the lunar book. The book explains, this creature can absorb any shock or fluctuation and store all that energy inside it. He's impressed that she is apparently 13,000 years old. This means she's way older than the lunar palace itself. That's why there's no info about her in the current encyclopedia. But that gives him an idea. If it's a creature no one knows, he doesn't have to worry about people thinking it's weak. Since the info was lost, no one will know if she is strong enough to be a king's creature, the perfect setup for a level-up manhwa. And in the end, for him who can't fight, maybe this ability is a good thing. With that, he decides to close his eyes and sign the contract. He tells the sparkling butterfly to return. The very next second, he finds himself in a lake. Below him, her reflection is in the water, and he feels a different vibe from other high-ranking creatures. So, this was his second pet, and he hoped it could actually do something, since the full moon was fast approaching. That night, some guy stared at the moon, wondering why he got stuck with patrol duty. He heard the Moon King was making a move, and was totally confused. But, being the so-called best tamer of the Black Moon, he didn't really have a choice. Still, scoping out the protagonist's house, he was terrified of getting spotted and instantly deleted. Meanwhile, our boy was just logging out of his pet's mind. The butterfly was buzzing with excitement, while the lake girl seemed to be knocked out. Since it was the full moon, he figured he'd check out the commotion. The second he left his room, he saw everyone scrambling and calling their pets. He was confused, but quickly figured it was tied to the day's danger alert. Just then, a huge explosion rocked the entire place. He bolted to the window, wondering what the heck that was. Smoke was rising in the distance. He cracked a smile, glad he wasn't the target. The guy who'd been watching him, however, was eating dirt. He couldn't believe his eyes. It was supposed to be a simple lunar rabbit. Instead, this thing was gigantic, with a powerful aura. The rabbit glanced over, spotting the guy, and lunged to attack. He dodged just in time, as the attack vaporized another spot. Back in the dorms, everyone was freaking out. Meanwhile, Suleang tried to make sense of all this. Elsewhere, creatures were stampeding through the pavilion, skidding to a halt before a door as the white deer yelled, asking what all the racket was about, and ordering them back to bed. The organizer was there too, completely spooked by the mess. The deer lay in bed, wondering if he'd actually call for her tonight. Out in the city, the rabbit was brawling with the guy. He vanished and reappeared, laughing, admitting she actually packed a punch. He'd summoned 2 pets, claiming he didn't want to use them against her. He warned her to back off, because if the Moon King got angry, she was toast, but she clearly didn't care, and charged right at him. He used the 2 pets as a shield as the barrage ripped through the city. The creatures were torn apart, but their skin absorbed the bits and they reformed in a second. The guy realized the rabbit was strong but slow, and not too bright. Since his pets didn't die for good, they obviously weren't a supreme rank, and with no sign of the Moon King, it seemed she wasn't connected to him. With that, he leaped off the creatures and let them soak up the moonlight. They merged, transforming into a black fish with lunar eyes. He immediately felt a sharp pain in his chest and yelled for them to stop absorbing. See, any tamer has to watch how much energy their pets absorb, or they'll go boom. He, however, was thrilled. Finally, a real test of his maximum power. He held out his hand, smirking that she wasn't the only one in this level-up manhwa to go berserk under the full moon. A shark-like attack erupted, blowing up another chunk of the city. Meanwhile, teachers were herding students into the shelters. Inside, they wondered who had the guts to attack the academy, and why. Another commented it was ridiculous, since everyone knows the Moon King lives there. Just then, our guy came sprinting past. The teacher told her student to wait, then realized it was the Moon King himself. He glanced back, looking like a mess, and said the moon was about to rise. Oddly enough, with only a crossbow, he seemed confident in the moonlight. It seemed his body just reacted differently in this situation. The previous owner might have said something cheesy like, "The eyes of the moon are upon him." The shark tamer stood in the city, sure his attack had been enough. But then his monster shrieked in agony, and he was startled. The rabbit had risen, and he couldn't believe it survived. As the rabbit stared him down, terrified, someone nearby whispered that this was scary. It was Beaur, dying to watch this, while her friend said it was too risky. She argued she was in the dorms for this exact kind of fight, right before getting bopped on the head. She was left with a bump on her head, wondering why that creature looked familiar. Su Jing chimed in that it was at least a mid-rank rabbit monster. The weird thing was its size. They were both stunned. The rabbit snatched the shark by the ears and slammed it into the ground. The Black Moon guy knew his creature was toast, using an authorized technique called Moon Devour. The monster roared at the sky, and a huge pressure wave hit the rabbit, leaving her all contorted. The guy smirked, saying this was impossible to beat. However, the rabbit seemed to be just absorbing the energy she'd sent out. The guy realized if a creature that huge still had a technique, it would be impossible to win. Beaur looked impressed, but Su Jing yelled at her to get out of there. With that, she shoved her down and called the fox to create a shield for the tomb. The creature let out a roar, creating an explosion that rocked the entire city. Man, that was atomic. When the smoke cleared, the little shark had disintegrated, and the place was totally wrecked. The rabbit noticed something nearby. The barrier around the two had collapsed. Su Jing commented that's the only reason they had survived. Beaur had also summoned her creature. Seeing it staring, she ran to the tiger and told it to back off, drawing the rabbit's attention. However, the rabbit was just staring at the three of them, who already thought it was all over. Weirdly, it stood perfectly still. Su Jing wondered why the creature wasn't moving. She noticed it seemed to be looking right at Beaur. With that, the monster went to the rubble and yanked the guy right out of it. The guy was furious, asking if that was a high-rank creature and telling it to let him go because the Moon King was coming. The rabbit slammed him to the ground and was about to crush him. Beaur wanted to stop the creature, but Su Jing said they shouldn't get involved. However, the girl replied that it was wrong to let the guy just die like that. Su Jing told her to at least be a bit careful. As she was gathering the courage to approach, someone told her to stay put. At that moment, he called upon the name of the moon god. And our boy, all stylish, said this wasn't her fight and walked forward, saying the moonlight would converge. A bunch of circles formed around him, and they wondered if he was even human. He found himself right under the rabbit. He knew the size and shape of that creature didn't match any supreme creature. This meant there was only one possibility. 10 minutes earlier, when everything happened, he was just observing. He was sure it was impossible to win against that. Even a 4-star creature had been destroyed in a second. The plan was to at least touch it to see its rank, but it was too risky. So maybe it was better to give up. However, he realized the monster wasn't attacking anyone. He knew it was impossible for a creature to be both high-ranked and mindless at the same time. Considering all this, he approached, knowing there was only one possibility. The fool, lying on the ground, thought that since he wasn't killed, he had received some sort of favor. However, Suleang just collected the body and told them to take it away. Then he turned, like the hero in a level-up manhwa, and found himself face-to-face with the rabbit. He then said it was impossible for a creature to go berserk in the moonlight and still remain conscious. This meant it was a common monster acting on instinct, and only low-level creatures act on instinct. He then extended his hand and asked if she was looking for him. From afar, the two girls wondered what this madman was doing, and Beaur told him to be careful. The rabbit was going to charge him, and they thought the poor guy would be crushed. He was confident in his conclusion, but still hesitant. At that moment, a drop fell into the lake. The creature's attack seemed to have ceased, and he was embraced by the girl from the lake. Everyone saw it. and the guy lying on the ground saw Shuru was one of the mysterious ancient creatures, something he had seen in the Black Moon intelligence books. He slowly opened his eyes, excited when he realized he had managed to stop the attack. The problem was that the girl from the lake wouldn't be able to absorb another attack like that. At least now, knowing what the creature was, he was sure he didn't need to worry anymore. He already knew very well who it was. That's why it didn't attack Beaur, and since it doesn't have a lunar body, it ends up absorbing all the power of the moon without being able to control it. Suddenly, a group approached asking if they were late. The guy on the ground said they weren't late, but their arrival now was pretty much pointless. The Moon King was awake, which meant game over for everybody. The crowd looked terrified. Seeing all this, Suleang knew he had to sell this kid as the real deal. He asked the rabbit if she was here for him, and she immediately bowed her head. The people looked baffled, so he promised he'd guarantee the moon power she desperately wanted. He moved in closer, saying they'd meet where it all began. She agreed, turned, and bounced. The dude on the ground shot up, furious. He'd been thrashed without even seeing the king's power and whined, "She attacked me. Why let her go?" But the king just turned and coolly asked, "Was it really an attack?" The guy was then amazed to see his eye change with the moon. He just prayed he wouldn't catch feelings too. The poor slob replayed the whole thing in his head and then just collapsed. He thought he'd seen the true emperor. All his motivation just vanished. It was time to head home. He was completely out of options. A mysterious voice told him to keep laying low in the northern region. With that, he awoke in the academy hospital. That's how the top brass sent messages through dreams. This meant everything he saw was real. The only problem was, he had zero clue how he was going to deal with the Moon King. Meanwhile, in his room, our hero woke up to that little rabbit just staring at him. He jumped, asking what the heck she was doing there. That's when it hit him. He'd actually made a pact with the kid. After everyone left, he went back to where they first met. Since the creature always transformed on a full moon, leaving her loose was way too risky, so he made the pact. Still, this setup with two low-tier creatures felt less kingly and more starter pack. At least he felt safer on full moon nights now. But seeing her all cute at his feet, he figured maybe he wasn't so safe after all. He decided it was time to hit the pavilion, but when he opened the door, everyone was running around like crazy, and he was totally lost. Some girls were chattering about making a pact with a supreme-ranked creature. He got nervous and checked online. A spear called the Crescent Moon, the only supreme type, had landed today in the northern region. The problem? It was so tough to tame, not even the Empress or the 10 Moons could handle it. A challenge straight out of a *** level up, Manhwa ***. As he walked around, he had no idea he was being watched. His pursuers were impressed. He was heading in the exact opposite direction of the spear. He was just ignoring the opportunity. But our guy had no intention of trying. He'd just embarrass himself in front of hundreds, or worse, the weapon itself would probably fry him with its energy. Besides, he had a much easier target way closer. The white flower was in her room when the door opened. She turned, and he said hi, mentioning it had been a minute. She asked what he wanted, and if he wasn't going to check out the crescent moon. Suleang joked that she must be chronically online to already know the news. She said she didn't need the internet to feel its arrival, and asked if he was okay with someone else grabbing it, but he said he wasn't interested. Having a pet was way cuter. With that, he pulled something from his pocket and offered it to her. She asked, "Is this some kind of super rare and expensive food?" He said it was close, but he actually had a near infinite supply from the system because the last owner never spent a dime. She took it and put it in a jar, making him ask if she disliked the gift. She replied that she only likes to eat while watching a movie or reading a novel. He was baffled, but said he was leaving to avoid blowing her cover. Then he remembered another way to communicate, and asked if she could add him as a friend. She said sure, and his phone buzzed instantly. The profile picture showed a girl with white hair and a purple horn. He knew that name was the same as the Academy's founder from centuries ago. She was clearly a direct descendant. The question was if she'd look like that in human form. She asked if there was a problem, but he said no, just that he'd come back tomorrow. This warrior might soon become a woman instead of a red-faced deer. 3 days passed, and the Moon King showed zero interest in the spear. Because of that, the line of people trying to claim it just kept getting longer. The girls slammed the table, calling it foolish to be there, and warned them to sign the waiver because if they died, it wasn't her fault. She was tired of being there until a guy from Black Whale showed up, and she asked if he'd improved. He said yes and offered to take over so she could relax. She said in that case, she'd leave it to him, while thinking that if he wanted the spear, he could just forget it. The girls approached the Black Whale guy, asking if he felt better. He said he'd recovered, his mind already on someone's arrival. He knew the dream was a message and wanted to see the person's face. Then, a girl in a black cloak approached, and as she handed over the form, he saw a tattoo on her hand. She glanced up, and he stood there trembling, sure that she was the one who was sent. In another region, someone was curious about the beast sent from the stars. A totally blue girl said the aura was stunning, and now that she's seen it, she's impressed. A blonde guy behind her asked if she finally gets it. If a creature not of the moonlight enters that place, it will be instantly vaporized. Two other women there called it a foolish dream. The blue girl said she understood. She'll send other order members there, but will keep an eye on the fools who go. As she left, the other women muttered she was repulsive. The blonde guy told them to calm down, saying they needed to choose who will enter that place. He explained that entering with a supreme rank creature would make the spear resist. This means only beasts below supreme rank have a chance, like in a level-up manhwa. The redhead wondered if this was why the Lunar King hadn't gone there. When a voice from behind said they'd arrived, they turned, looking concerned. All the contenders were eager to try, but they knew it was dangerous. The girl looked at the blue girl, who stared right back, then announced they'd enter the crescent moon domain. First, that item's consciousness is nearly invincible. Second, if it awakens and attacks, basically everything will be disintegrated. Our boy was getting the same information, that although it has life, it's unable to communicate. The white flower sent a message explaining that it's better for everyone to give up, and our boy found it ridiculous that a sleeping item could kill anyone who got close. He asked if the item ever wakes up, and the white flower said yes, but not on its own. She asked if he wasn't going to try, and the poor guy wondered why he'd do something so risky. If anything went sideways, it would completely ruin his image. He then seemed to get an idea, and stood up. Among the hopefuls, the girl in disguise noticed the Lunar King wasn't around. Touching the mountain, she thought, if it's what she suspected, there's a chance to win. And as soon as she got the crescent moon, she would kill all the tamers in the area, so no information could spread. She got a message on her phone and discovered the Lunar King was heading that way. She got confused, wondering why this was happening right now. The instructor asked what she was doing with her communicator, saying if she got distracted there, she'd end up dead without even knowing it. The girl just looked at her, then bowed and apologized. The instructor then left, saying it'd be good for her to just go back and give up. However, the other girl thought that once she got the crescent moon, she'd torture her to death. The instructor then explained that everyone would get teleportation stones. The moment they are broken, they'll be pulled out from inside, and she explained that if they see the crescent moon awakening, they should get out immediately, or they would end up dying. Woon was there, just thinking that as soon as the king arrives, things would get complicated. Meanwhile, the blue-haired girl thought it was ridiculous for them to try this, especially since Empress Can Yue herself had already tried and failed. Seeing they were a bunch of 3-star tamers, she found it impossible. However, she noticed something odd. The girl, with her back turned, spun around at that exact moment. She felt something, and instantly hid behind a tree, wondering why a master tamer was in the middle of the academy. Meanwhile, people started crossing the barrier. The woman thought she had to resolve this before the Moon King arrived. It was then, the blue-haired girl called out to Elha, who was the instructor. She said only the Moon King could handle this, and asked why so many weaklings were there. Elha asked why she didn't just try to tame this supreme-level creature. After a stare-down, the blue-haired girl realized the instructor seemed oblivious to the other girl. That's when everyone whipped around. The Moon King was arriving, and they wanted to know what he was doing there. Aoho asked if he was going to try taming the creature, and the others worried he might awaken the weapon. However, the instructor called them ignorant, saying if he was there, it was because he was sure he could tame it. In reality, Suleang just wanted to poke the book to see if it would free her. But as soon as his foot touched the barrier, the book updated instantly. A silent library of supreme rank appeared, an incredibly strong and rare attribute that lower-ranked beasts couldn't even sense. Suleang was stoked that it was supreme rank, but he immediately yanked his foot back. He seemed hesitant, and people wondered why he stopped. Then he pulled out his phone, leaving them confused. Aoho Yu then asked if he had a problem, and he just smirked, questioning why she let the black moon insects into that place. The crowd was shocked as he walked in, declaring the twin moons would now rule this place, and he'd handle everything personally. People were still reeling from the black moon news, and the blue-haired girl knew it was the one she had faced. People were now worried about the students who had already entered, but Aoho Yu said they had teleport stones, so they were safe. Our boy, however, was hesitant to enter because of the silent library. If the black cult used something like that, it meant they had serious faith in its power. The situation was dangerous. The old him would have chickened out. However, strangely, ever since he transmigrated, it was like a real-life level-up manhwa. With that, he dove in headfirst, as the black shark dude worried for the serpent girl. Elha said it made sense, and he mentioned running their signal for everyone. The women, however, remarked that in his current state, he wouldn't be much help. The instructor noticed his bizarre behavior, wondering what was up with him. The guy was all hyped, until he touched the barrier and got blasted by an explosion. Everyone jumped, and he wondered what just happened. Then a girl with 50 bells tied to her appeared, saying he had zero chance. From the tattoo on her thigh, he knew she was from the Twin Moons sect. She then asked if anyone had heard His Highness's order. This girl must jingle with every single step. She announced that as long as she was here, nobody gets in. The black shark wondered if she already knew about the silent library. Inside, the serpent girl was snooping around. She'd been there for 10 minutes and still hadn't found the spear. The weaklings who entered with her were already long gone. At least now, no one could interrupt her plan. Suddenly, she felt something. A ridiculously powerful aura she was sure she wasn't mistaken about. Her eyes lit up when she finally located the spear. She was thrilled, thinking she hadn't even made a pact with a silent library. She had saved herself for this moment and crept closer, saying the spear wanted her. She was sure it rejected the others because they were born empresses, saying the spear liked to be appreciated. Then, acting all cute, she said she might not be very powerful, but as a rank 6 tamer, she would definitely admire that spear a whole lot. With that, she dashed to grab it, promising she would never treat it badly. However, as soon as her hand got close, a light flared, and an energy field stopped her from touching it. She wondered how it was possible that she was rejected. She was positive she was the perfect match for it. So, what went wrong? Meanwhile, others recognized her, and one guy said he knew she was the one who defeated 20 people from his sect. He recalled how she had even taken out one of his brothers. With that, the mob declared they would end her and take the crescent moon. However, she started laughing like a maniac, leaving everyone confused. She snarled that she was already in a bad mood for being rejected, and now, this bunch of trash wanted to get wiped out. With that, she summoned her creatures, a monster made of moon-filled mist, and a creature riding a massive flying whale. Everyone realized they were facing high-rank beasts. She told them to quit the flattery and summon what they had, or she'd unleash hell, and ordered her monsters to attack. After her beasts wiped the floor with everyone else's, she turned to the crescent spear, asking if it saw that. The power she held was far greater than it could ever imagine. However, the spear remained completely silent. She was about to blow a gasket when someone called her a piece of trash from the Black Moon. It was our boy, laughing at her and her whole anxious act. She spun around, recognized him as the Lunar King, and scoffed at why a 1-star was there alone. She said that even with an emperor-ranked creature, he himself was still a total weakling. Suleang kept laughing, knowing she thought he couldn't summon due to the silent lyra. So he played along, saying that the serpent's seat was correct. A lone emperor can't do everything by himself. However, he added, the outcome here would be the same with or without the lyra. He warned her to break the stone and flee before the twin moons arrived. The serpent girl was shocked, realizing he knew about the lyra, but entered anyway. Now she didn't know whether to flee or attack him, as Suleang walked calmly. All he needed was to touch the spear once, the weapon that had actually managed to slice a star. Just as he was about to touch it, someone yelled at him not to even think about it. It's the serpent girl, launching an attack. All her monsters came barreling towards our boy. However, a simple wall blocked everything, leaving her totally confused. She had no idea how he did that without a beast. It was like a scene from a level-up manhwa. Our protagonist, meanwhile, nearly had a heart attack. Even though the lake girl has no attack power, at least her defense is pretty darn strong. The serpent started losing her mind, and screamed that enough was enough, warning that without an emperor-ranked creature, he was nothing. Abyss started bleeding as a pentagram appeared at her feet, and she ordered the devouring demon king to appear. Dark clouds gathered as everyone trembled. Even our protagonist was scared of that energy, and he knew the crescent spear couldn't sense the monster's existence because of the lyra. A giant snake appeared, and she announced he was about to be eaten. However, our boy stood there with a blank expression, and she couldn't understand why he seemed so indifferent. Why did he seem so unconcerned in front of a supreme-rank creature? Well, he was only doing this because he'd read on the internet that when an animal is big, you have to stare it in the eye to scare it off. The girl screamed, "Enough! If he wouldn't summon, he would die," and she ordered the creature to attack. The monster slammed into the ground and then leaped at him. He stood stoically, not moving an inch. Since the lake girl hadn't consumed all she could yet, he decided to leave this particular job to her. The entire place exploded, and when the smoke cleared, he was standing there intact. He looked confident, but inside he was thanking the heavens for surviving. Considering the attack's strength, she would need much more power to break the barrier. She collapsed to the ground, wondering if this was the legendary favor of the lunar god. Our boy walked away, saying she didn't need to hurry. Once he got the crescent lance, he'd deal with her. She concluded he wasn't fighting her because he was more focused on the item. While wondering if his shield could withstand a lance attack with that, she disabled the Silent Lyra's ability. Instantly, the lance sensed the new presence and awakened. Someone grabbed the lance and pulled it from the ground. Apparently, it has a humanoid form too. If the deer was already nuts, now he's got some kind of romance going on with the weapon. Seeing the dangerous and powerful figure appear, everyone started running in a panic. Feeling its energy, Suleang hoped the lake girl could at least resist it. However, she warned in his mind that there was a 1% chance, at most, of blocking such an attack. He thought this was madness, and wondered how the snake girl planned to survive this. Looking beside him, he saw she had hidden herself among her creatures. The crescent moon then launched itself towards him. He stood there knowing there was no way to escape this now. As he turned to say something, we flash back a few minutes ago. Kat is informed that the woman inside is attacking and questions how the academy let someone like that slip through. The blonde found it odd that the woman outside seemed so calm. Why didn't she seem concerned about the Lunar King's safety? Then suddenly, she felt it too. She grimaced, knowing the crescent moon had been awakened. Everyone is freaking out, and she screams for them to run because anyone who stays is toast. She also senses another aura, wondering if the Emperor is involved. In the heat of battle, our boy has no clue what to do. In 3 seconds, this attack will land, and it's game over for him. Thinking back to the tech era, he whips out his phone in 1 second, shoots off a message, and warns the white flower he needs help. That crescent moon is about to hit him. And at the last second, he reaches out, and I thought something weird was happening, but nope, a massive explosion just rocked the whole area. Everyone was blasted back, wondering if the Emperor just crashed the party. They were unsure if the Lunar King died, and in the middle of all the smoke, you couldn't see a thing. A moment later, the snake girl started to climb out from her serpent, wondering what just happened. She saw the crescent moon was calm again, and wanted to know where the Lunar King went. If he'd really been killed by her awakened weapon. She got emotional, thinking she was the one who actually beat the Lunar King. She starts ranting that the idiot was on his phone at the last second, and screams to the sky that she defeated the Great King. All excited, she turns to the crescent moon and declares that it's all hers now. But, weirdly enough, the item starts waking up again. She knows her worn-out snake can't handle it. From the smoke, our boy emerges like a true level up Manhwa protagonist. She finds it impossible that he not only survived, but he doesn't even have a scratch on him. That's when she spots a giant paw behind him and wonders what that is. The creature is so huge it's practically touching the clouds. It was way too big for supreme rank. But if it were Emperor, everyone here would know about it. She starts trembling, clutching a crystal. However, she decides it's not the right time. Even if she dies, she wants to know what the Lunar King's beast is, since that's the info everyone has been dying to find out. Slowly, it reveals itself as a supreme rank beast, known as the Cloud Walker who follows the moon, basically a direct reincarnation of the ancient goddess. The girl collapses, wondering how that is even possible. That monster was at least 4 or 5 times bigger than her creature. I mean, in terms of sheer size, her creature is the biggest in the Black Cult, and the craziest part is a 1-star Tamer is using all its power. Our boy is just standing there, happy to be alive. He never imagined it would actually grow this large. And the worst part is, he has zero idea how it teleported in at the last second and saved him. Plus, the girl on its back is probably the ancestor. The white flower then tells him to dominate the crescent moon, and fast, or she'll get sliced in half. Our boy is confused. He thought she was stronger. She says he must have had a plan to send her there. That's when he remembers a direct hit counts as body contact. A classic level up, Manhwa mechanic. This means he can see its details in the lunar book. He tells the system to open the book. And hey, remember the last chapter ended when Su Yang grabbed that very book? Since he'd made contact with the spear, he knew it would appear in the book. It says, this is a legendary spear that's been sleeping a long time because it lost its sheath. Because of this, it sleeps and wakes for several years at a time, and can't communicate with any living creature. However, our boy quickly realized this item was of supreme lunar rank. Now that he had info on the Crescent Star Spear, maybe communicating with it wouldn't be so hard. The problem is that not even this book, which is supposed to have all the answers, can communicate with it. This means the spear was born even before the Moon Goddess Palace, but it also means almost nobody has this information. Suddenly, the spear opens its eye. At that moment, the cocky snake girl is totally scared, wanting to bail. She calls for the devourer and orders it to protect her. Something seems to happen to the snake. Meanwhile, the spear glares at the white flower, who's like, "What are you looking at me for?" With that, the two look like they're about to throw down. Meanwhile, on the ground, Suleang just walks closer. The girl wonders what on earth the Lunar King is trying to do. Any attack from that supreme aura would vaporize him. However, he tells the Crescent Star Spirit to submit to him. It ignores him as their auras clash, until Suleang just holds out a hand, flexing some power. Of course, the spear wasn't having it. He then utters the name, Frost Flower, which is the name of its sheath. The spear instantly gets confused, actually looking at him. As Suleang says that in the lunar goddess's name, he swears that within 3 years, he'll bring the sheath back to it. In exchange though, it would have to grant him a favor. The spear stays silent, and a second later, it starts to dissipate. Just like that, it returns to its true form, and he can now enter its territory. The snake girl wonders if that's even possible. As Suleang calmly walks forward, the spear forms a water whirlpool that surges toward him, and their powers merge. The girl quickly gets it. The Crescent Star Spear has accepted the Lunar King. Even the White Flower is impressed by this. She knew very well this event would make the whole world go nuts, and our boy was full of confidence, while the fool thought this was impossible. She knows tens of thousands have failed to tame this spear. It's extremely risky for it to accept any contract, since it only breaks when the contractor dies. That's why this spear usually only accepts people it deems invincible, and apparently, this was a true level-up Manhwa moment, because the Lunar King was considered one of them. The girl realizes her whole mission is shot. So, she decides her death will send a message to the Black Moon cult. Once again, she orders the Devourer King to attack Suleang. He just replies that this woman had already seen way too much. He didn't like silencing people, but it was time to end this. Man, the energy swept through, and her creature was just vaporized. The boy blew a crater in the mountain, and even our guy didn't expect the blow to be that strong. The poor girl is on the side, coughing up blood after her creature was evaporated. She quickly realized the servant before her wasn't just supreme rank, that, at the very least, he was the descendant of someone at emperor rank. Still, she didn't want to die like this. Passing on the news about the spear was more important than anything, so she needed to escape. The whole area wasn't sealed yet, so all she had to do was get away from the Lunar King. Just then, the crystal in her hand suddenly vanishes. Neither the White Flower nor the fool knows what just happened. The thief was our boy's simple, low-rank butterfly, which brought it right to his hand. He says in a place full of high-level creatures, nobody notices one of those. The poor girl is left stunned that she lost her escape route to a weak creature like that. Absolutely desolate, she says it's too late, finally realizing why he is the Lunar King. Man, the White Flower gives a little puff, and the poor girl starts glowing, saying it's an honor to die for the Lunar King, and that was the end of that fool. Outside, the bell girl was calling for the Lunar King, who just came out of the dungeon. He announced the serpent's seat was dead, and the protection on that place should be removed. Everyone was watching, impressed he handled it alone, as he announced that from now on the Crescent Star Spear was in his care. The news that the Lunar King now had this spear shocked the entire lunar lineage. The scene then shifts to the Southern Azure Moon sect. Someone calls for Empress Can Yue, saying something terrible has happened. The Crescent Star Spear has been tamed by the Lunar King. Can Yue tells them not to panic. She already knows. The Lunar King is the chosen one of the moon, and that spear favors the chosen. Her friend argues, however, that the spear should be hers since she's the master of 4 stars and has an emperor rank beast. The girl says, that's just a detail. They'll find out who the moon truly favors. She warns that during the moon festival, all qualified sect participants should withdraw. Meanwhile, on a coast in the northern border, a horned demon servant tells a cloaked figure that their 2 guests have arrived. She asks the Analope seat if she thinks she'll lose to the Lunar King again. She replies that in a fair fight, just the 2 of them on the field, she is absolutely sure she would win, and with that, she would restore the honor of the Black Moon's sect. From the sea, a voice hoped their holy son wouldn't disappoint them. The blonde, fascinating moon warns that if they lose to the Lunar King, they will have to submit. And another one, in water-like clothes called Yellow Spring, warns that no one should challenge their gods. He tells them both not to worry. The plan would work. Now it was time for them all to head to Moonlight Academy. They weren't waiting for the festival to kill the Lunar King. At the Star Museum, someone asks if the festival is really about to start. White Flower says you don't choose when the festival happens, as it only starts when the moon god is at his peak and guides them. Suleang replies that he already knows all that, because it's all anyone at the academy talks about. When this festival kicks off, all moon creature tamers must fight to see who is the strongest. The reward is that their lunar creatures grow at an extremely accelerated rate, and this makes the battles even more intense. The festival won't end until someone lights the throne, or everyone gives up. And as he told everyone, he would defeat Empress Can Yue within 3 years. Our boy is now wondering why his body's previous owner made such a ridiculous promise. How could an idiot like that believe he was favored by the moon enough to go around saying that? White Flower says not to worry. In 3 years, Can Yue won't stand a chance. Besides, she points out, it's extremely rare to obtain pages from the Lunar Tome. These pages let someone form contracts with new creatures even after hitting their limit. Our boy is impressed. With a whole book, he could form an army. However, he's curious how people will get pages from the tome if he has the entire thing. She gives him a headbutt and tells him to stop worrying, then asks if she can stay out of her space longer. After all, moonlight would help him much more. That's when she notices her headbutt sent the poor guy crashing into a wall. He realizes he can't keep tanking hits from a supreme-ranked creature. He then sends her 100 venison recipes. Suddenly, information on the participants starts to appear. Bayu is a princess with human and half-beast blood. Our boy is impressed. He honestly thought she was a cat. Then there's another one called Bei Yao, the 4th princess of the Bayer Empire, the strongest of the humans. This whole system feels like a real-life level-up manhwa, as he sends both profiles to White Flower. She says she'll take the top one, and he'll handle the one below. Whoa, what do they mean by handle? Are they going to eliminate those poor girls? One girl is sulking because the Lunar King took her spear, and she didn't stand a chance. Her friend tells her to forget it and go to the announcement area. There's better stuff to do. Over there, White Flower is observing the girl from the Saint clan. She had a great scent, but didn't seem too bright. That's when a raindrop lands on her nose. Since her powers are reduced in the rain, she decides to leave before her abilities get nerfed. However, she notices something strange as a water dragon rockets toward her. The impact creates a huge explosion on the path where the two girls were. The knight says he has found one of the 5 supreme targets. He then warns the kid she has 5 seconds to summon her beasts. He claims he doesn't like killing a summoner with a surprise attack. Problem is, the creature on his shoulder says he's favored by a 7-star Tamer, especially since this creature is at emperor level and had become seriously dangerous. Meanwhile, a girl steps out of her house, saying it's raining. It was Beaur, asking why they had to go to a training area at a time like this. That's when she suddenly notices a small butterfly in front of her. It lands on her finger, making her a little flustered. The servant tells her not to mingle with these low-level beasts, but she replies, "That's nonsense," sure that even the Lunar King must play with these creatures sometimes. Just then, someone asks if they also like talking about the Lunar King, and wants to join in. Clearly, it's the antelope seat coming for a confrontation. The servants have no idea who this fool is. Manhwa, cruel as ever, calls her ugly as sin and tells her to beat it. The poor girl takes the insult, but being called ugly really ticked her off. She says she's heartbroken enough to cry, but in this case, she'll just have to take her out. The servants instantly recognize her as the evil-eyed gazelle, and Beaur immediately knows this is the Black Moon cult. Meanwhile, at the Academy's training area, everyone's gathered, wondering why Beaur and Bayo are still a no-show, or tells everyone to listen up. After 1,000 years, the Moon God's festival is finally kicking off. Today, the moon creature Tamers will battle it out to be chosen by the gods, and with every win, they'll be rewarded big time. At that moment, someone says the sacrifices must take each other out until only one is left standing, and with that, the winner would be chosen as this era's true lunar god. At that moment, Elru screams for everyone to evacuate. However, a split second later, a massive explosion goes off. She quickly realizes it was a 7-star battle technique. Unfortunately, she only managed to save her own skin and fears for the students. But when she looks around, it seems everyone is completely intact. The blonde is baffled, wondering what the heck just happened. Meanwhile, the moon creature says it looks like her attack was absorbed. She figures to pull off something like that, it can only be the Lunar King. However, he wasn't making a move, just hiding. Since they're on the moon battlefield, the lake shield was way more effective. But even so, it burned through 40% of the shield's energy just to save these guys. However, he is surprised. It had been a long time since he'd felt this angry. Suddenly, a lightning bolt rips across the sky, and another moon creature appears. Once again, supreme rank and 7 stars. This means the enemy has at least one emperor. However, the blonde lays into her friend and asks if risking everyone's life was really necessary. The yellow creature says he's going to become king, and kings don't care about the lives of ants. But the girl claps back that this is Twin Moon's turf, and they're only on a mission to stall the vice presidents. Of course, O overheard and asks if the blonde isn't the summoner of Fascinating Moon. 5 years ago, she went to their sect and saw her in action. So, why is she suddenly attacking like this? A yellow blob says it seems she's one of them. So now, what are they going to do? The blonde then replies that as a courtesy, she'll give her 1 minute to evacuate all the innocent students. Anyone still there after that time is fair game. Meanwhile, looking like the star of a level-up manhwa, the Lunar King strolls up and asks if they're from the fascinating moon sect. It was pretty gutsy of them to attack this place without any warning, and he wants to know what makes them think they'll get out of this alive. At that very moment, he summons the Crescent Star Spear, and of course, everyone recognizes it. The supreme rank weapon only needs a glance to the side. He immediately pulls the spear and charges forward. However, Oru realizes the spear is out of control and can't tell friend from foe. At this rate, that creature will end up killing everyone here. Man, the entire sky lit up in that same second. The explosion ripped through the place, and when the smoke cleared, Elru was sprawled on the ground, totally wiped. She was honestly surprised she had survived. In the end, the Lunar King didn't let her die. But those two in the middle were absolutely toast. Fascinating Moon retorts that even with that weapon, what they did was just the beginning, and with a final warning, he should know the Emperor is coming for him. With that, the yellow blob starts to glow, and the girl summons a whole mess of planets. Once again, the crescent star opens its eye, and now, Suang is in some serious trouble. He's already protected himself from 2 attacks, and now, the lake shield only has 4% defense left. He knows that once this attack hits, everything will be obliterated. And the worst part is, he's going to lose control of the spear, and it might just mow everyone down. The problem is, he's fresh out of options, so, the crescent spear unleashes a flurry of cuts. The two who were preparing instantly realize they're doomed, and the blonde is certain there's no way to defend against this attack that swept through the entire city. Far away, the fallout is even raining down on the students. Suddenly, one of them asks what that is in the sky. It looked like there were 2 moons. Then, someone shouts, "Why would you foolishly make a full moon for 5 minutes?" It's another blonde with, ball-shaped legs who says, "Now we're totally screwed." The first blonde apologizes, saying she did it instinctively, just to protect herself, but her friend retorts, "Now we have to fight the Lunar King under a full moon," and suddenly, they both jump. A giant bunny had just appeared. The girl felt it was supreme rank, but something was off, and her friend says, "The crescent spear's appearance has changed, too. How are we going to fight those 2 at the same time?" The crescent spear then readies up and slaps the bunny, ripping it clean in half. Man, the other 2, confused, had no idea why the crazy spear attacked its own ally, but in that moment, it was already turning to glare at them. Meanwhile, outside the academy, a bunch of servants are ticked off, and the antelope says she can't last another minute. She then calls for the gazelle with the evil eye, who unleashes a laser barrage. The other summoned creatures were all completely useless. Unable to do a thing, they hit the ground, totally destroyed. Bei Yao then summons the eagle dragon, which appears, gigantic, right in front of her. The antelope says it took way too long to summon a supreme-ranked creature. It was interesting, but it was also getting crushed easily. The servant then summons a tiger, telling her to bolt for the edge to be rescued. However, the antelope seemed bored, asking if that was all they had. Once again, the gazelle prepared an attack. And man, this time, it was the end for the servants as it struck. Even the poor girl trying to escape was slammed into the ground. She got up, desperate, knowing this was the end for her. However, she was crushing our boy's little butterfly, which rose up to face her. And strangely, out of nowhere, the evil gazelle actually seemed to back off. Even the antelope's legs got shaky. She had no idea how a shimmering butterfly got there. Bei Yao is confused why the antelope is so terrified of that butterfly, but it seems to have saved her. Even though she doesn't get it, this was her chance to escape. And with that, the antelope hits the ground, saying that unfortunately, she wouldn't be able to complete her part of the operation. Meanwhile, Beaur and Su Jing are laid out. The water creature is doing a countdown, and White Flower wonders if the water monarch is also there, because it would be a huge problem if she appeared and that guy got involved. The creature says they've had enough time, and it's a real shame they're gonna die like this. A vortex appears in his hand, and in a flash, both of them are being drowned. Some clouds appear, and the two start to float. The knight knows he's never heard of such powers. This is an unknown variable. They turn, and the guy asks who she is. Obviously, it's White Flower, arriving in style on her little cloud. Su Jing asks why the supreme creature was helping them, but she has no choice but to save them, since she promised the Lunar King she'd help him. The knight then introduces himself as a supreme rank creature called the Emperor of Autumn. White Flower looks to the side and asks if that little guy named Duanjantu can come out and play. The Emperor seems a bit confused by how she treated the guy, saying he wouldn't show unless it was to fight someone of an extremely high rank. She says in that case, It's perfect. She likes to beat up the weak and run from the strong. The guy smacks her, telling her to shut up. At the same moment, a block of water shoots up from the ground, and the poor girl starts to drown. However, she suddenly appears above it, her body glowing with a purple light. The Autumn Knight says it seems she's a bodiless creature like him. Since that's the case, he was going to use that. Suddenly, a vortex opens above her, which starts pulling her upward. The entire area explodes, and he seems confident she's dead. But that's when he notices something strange. There were 2 moons in the sky, so he knew someone pulled an unauthorized move. In a region full of lunar creatures, he was at a great disadvantage, like in some level-up manhwa. But he was lucky to kill the enemy so quickly. It'd be good for him to get an explanation as to why someone did something so foolish. But a long-haired woman appears, asking where he's off to. He whips around, and folks, here comes the real danger.